Hello, comic fans. Got me some Kiba. 1/3 banana juice, 2/3 cherry juice. In German, Kirsch, Banane, Kiba. You got it? A colorful drink for some colorful topic today. Cheers. Hello, comic fans, by the way. Yeah, I want to talk about a character right from the edge, one of the many edges of the DC universe. Maybe his first appearance is collected in the All-Star Comics Archive Editions number 2. I'm not sure about the first appearance that is, but yeah, I want to show you here some of these old panels, beautifully crisp drawings from Jack Burnley. And here you can see the alter ego of Starman, Ted Knight. And here is how he looks like when he dons his cape. I have another collection here in volume 3. There he is, right on the cover, with his significant device. Some device that enables him to fly, as you can see here. And this, I always think, is a neat thing when superheroes don't have magic abilities or given to them by some kind of magic, but by science. Even though this is some kind of, yeah, BS science in a way, but I don't care. So I have a bit of a reason why this guy can fly. That's fine. But obviously, as you can tell by all these beautiful books here right before me, I don't want to tell you something or too much about the old character here. Ted Knight will appear in the new comics, but I want to talk about the newer comics from middle of the 90s, when James Robinson wrote and Tony Harris, for the most part, drew a fantastic series. I guess, yeah, at least one of my favorite superhero comics of all time, Starman. And these are collected in these fine, beautiful hardcover omnibuy. I think they are pretty rare, and maybe these are one of the few exceptions in my collection where I really have some whales, and where other collectors may want to kill me for these books. But these books are fantastic. Let's start how these books are made and how beautiful they are. They come with these dust jackets, but more important, the cardboard of these books here. The cardboard is printed with these colorful images as well. And that's, in my opinion, how each and every comic book should look like, more or less. So let's go through these books here. This is volume 2 and this is volume 1. And I put them out of their dust jackets right now because I need them naked for deeper investigations afterwards. Yeah, and this is volume 3 and volume 4. I will keep it for today only with the part of the series that was drawn by Tony Harris, because else this video would be too long. But I really can see me making a second video about the other stuff that is contained here in these books that isn't drawn by Tony Harris, and volume 5 and 6 that is for the most part drawn by Peter Snyberg. And in a way you can say that the first part, drawn by Tony Harris, is the strongest part of Starman, and I won't argue with that, actually, but I've enjoyed the second part here and all the other stories within the Tony Harris drawn stuff as well. As almost always with these huge series, it's pretty difficult to find a proper starting point. But since I've talked about this rod here, this device that enables Starman to fly, why not start with this little drawing here, in which showcases a bit that quite some thinking went into the creation of the important details in the story here. But even more important than this cosmic rod thing here, this device that enables Starman or the different Starman to fly, more important than this one is the city of Opal, where all the stuff is happening. A city almost with the essence of a city from the 19th century, or how James Robinson puts it somewhere, the city has a Victorian heart, but is streamlined by the Deco style. I think that's the very American version of Art Deco. And you can see it here, and you can see this right in the beginning of this story here. And here, Art Deco all over. When I think of Art Deco, I think of ornaments, of too much of everything, and or decoration all over. And in a way, this is reflected here in the pictures. And in James Robinson's writing style in a way as well, because he has a thing with words that they flow right out of his pen, so to speak, and sometimes it's just too much, but it has this positive redundancy. So he wants to secure, if you get not one of his description, you will have 2 or 3 others, and then you get what he meant. And it starts, as you can see here, it's the very beginning, so it's absolutely no spoiler. One Starman dies, and this is David Knight, and so his brother is urged and hard pressed into this job. Very reluctant. He does not think high of these superheroic things, even though his father was the superhero Ted Knight that I've shown you before, and that we will see here in the story as well. There as well. But very quick, and after a while, he enjoys in a way the superheroic stuff, even though you can tell it's not always that easy, as it is with superheroics. But I wanted to give you some overview about the Starman, because it's not only the old Starman, Ted Knight, and the son, Jack Knight, and his brother that was only, unfortunately, Starman for a short while. But there are others here, as you can see, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And here's the Arch Enemy gang, the Mist family. Here we have a guy that is introduced in the series as the Cosmic Freak, which he is in a way, but much more than that. And here's the Shade, another character that was plucked from somewhere else in the universe. And we have a lot of references to Black Canary. Even Batman has some cameo here, and the Green Lanterns, and especially the very first one, Alan Scott. Is he the very first one? I don't know. And yeah, for those of you who are deep into the old and golden age superheroes, this has to be a feast, I think. And I know it is for a lot of these hardcore nerds a feast, because all these characters are picked up here, and are treated properly here. You can see right on the title here is Shazam, Captain Marvel. What makes Starman so great? I think two things are here to mention. First and foremost, it's Tony Harris' art, of course. James Robinson said in one of his very lengthy and verbose for or afterwards that he wanted to have an artist who can handle blacks. And even though these are very colorful pages, you always see that Tony Harris has a very good sense for the blacks. And this is important when you have a character who is actually a star character that shines, and you can only portray light and brightness when you handle the blacks. So this is one thing. I would add, or here you can, fantastic. And I would add that thinking this Art Deco idea a bit further, that we are here in a city ruled by Art Deco. And Art Deco is all about precise line work. And if there is one strength of Tony Harris, then it is this line work. He uses obviously photographs and traces them, which can maybe lead to some stiff or unnatural face expressions here and there. But for the most part, it has this exact line work. All the outlines and the lines that run through the shadows as well are totally precise. And so his art, not only on the covers here, but especially on the covers, has this appearance of some church window with these cloister, these surroundings. So I think this looks totally Art Deco to me. And and Tony Harris is fantastic in delivering these art. Speaking of Art Deco windows, here we have these frameworks around these panels from Tony Harris, and and you can maybe guess a bit more, or even more, what James Robinson meant when he said or wrote that he wanted an artist who can handle the blacks. It's colorful, but it's very important to have these black shapes as well on the panels. And maybe you can see why I picked Tony Harris stories of all these stories and wanted to just talk about these in the beginning and put the other stuff here aside, even though we have from Steve Yoel, who worked with Grant Morrison, some stories and who are very good as well. And and the second thing why Starman is so fantastic is the fantastic character work done by James Robinson and Tony Harris and all the other artists involved here. Because the two brothers here, they meet, as you know. Dave Knight died before, but he meets his brother in some virtual realities, maybe dreams. It's more like lucid daydreams, so to speak. And they have a talk, and it's always these are very touching interludes in the run of the story, and maybe the best parts of the whole series. So, and even the other artists, they gave their best to give their own Art Deco impression. That this page here, that's some page I wanted to show you as well, because the amount of crazy details here is amazing. And here's another character in the series that I really like. Just as an aside, that Jack Knight character, the Starman, he's a collector of everything collectible. And so in a way, he's an alter ego of the writer James Robinson, who knows seemingly everything about everything that our cultural world, from movies and comics and what music that you can know. And a walking encyclopedia of trivia, so to speak. And Jack Knight is as well this guy here. And sometimes the characters, they speak while they are fighting with each other. They are discussing as well which, I don't know, which Woody Allen movie is the best. Here it is. And Batman really is portrayed as some kind of fool. And here's a quick aside that not everything is fine and pristine in terms of Tony Harris art, because he very often does this copy and paste thing, and this is always an annoyance, regardless who does it. But Tony Harris really does it too often, in my opinion. But he, makes up for it maybe with some double page like this one here. I don't know what this is with this copy and paste thing, but I'm really off track here. I wanted to show you something with the shade in it. And here we have the shade, some kind of mysterious, ambiguous character who changes a lot in the series. Here again, we have some copy and paste thing here. And he's very detached and cool and has a lot of depth to him. And I found him very fascinating and still find. But the whole series is full of fascinating characters. We have the police family of some Irish origin, the O'Dares. And each of them is an original, interesting character in his own right. And maybe let's flip just, here's another Starman who will become important later on. Another of these meetings of Davy and Jack. Here's some classic comic book character, Dr. Phosphorus, but it plays right into the abilities of Tony Harris art to work with blacks and colors in this fantastic fashion. I mean, it's total nonsense to believe that this guy here can exist, but why not? Why not? And we have other guys from the DC universe like Solomon Grundy, who plays a big role in the series. And I eat it all up. In another comic, I would say this is totally out of the question to believe that Solomon Grundy, as you know, is a guy who is made out of plants. Scientifically, total BS. But I buy it with Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, and I buy it here. And even up to the point that I guess it's here in the aforementioned story where Batman appears. It's totally craziness all over, almost a Doom Patrol craziness. Because right here in the story that I've shown you earlier, Batman and Starman and all the others, they eat some fruit from Solomon Grundy, and they dive into his mind. In the mind of Solomon Grundy. And this story is not drawn by Tony Harris, but anyhow, this is a mix of Steve Joel for the most part and Mark Buckingham somewhere. And they go into the mind of Solomon Grundy and have to fight different impersonifications of Solomon Grundy here. Some horde of Solomon Grundys all over the place, and try to save the charming, the nice Solomon Grundy, and so the world has not to deal with the bad Solomon Grundy again. So it totally whacked out, far out stuff, but when you're that far in the story, you will read everything with great pleasure. That is served by James Robinson's mind and all the creators that are involved in this series here. Great stuff indeed, and yeah, I will think of all the things that I wanted to show you and talk about and haven't, and make a second video sometimes else. Thanks for listening and watching. Goodbye.